This is Eric Metaxas. If you don't know who he is, your grandfather probably does. He's on radio. He does a 2-hour show every day from the Empire State Building, I think, something like that. He's like the new Rush Limbaugh for all intents and purposes. I just want to give you a little introduction to the guy because I found some pretty interesting clips from him. And as it happens, I read one of his books recently, and I want to write a book of my own about it. The book that he wrote is titled Letter to the American Church, and it's about how they're not radical enough, basically. I want to write a book titled Letter to the American Church, A Response. I think that'd be on point. Anyway, check this dude out. This clip, by the by, is from mid-July 2021.
This nation was founded by Christian people, and the reason we are
No, it was founded by deists.
essentially a Christian nation is because, as true Christians, we believe we don't want a theocracy.
As true Christians, you believe that you don't want a theocracy? Okay, go on.
A theocracy. We want freedom. We want any atheist, every Jew, every Muslim, anybody to be welcome here because that is at the heart of the Christian faith. We cannot.
Okay, it's fascinating that he says this because in a minute, he's a full-blown Christian nationalist. I'll just lay it out for you on the spot. He's a full-blown Christian nationalist. He wants Christians and only Christians, and not just Christians, but his brand of Christian in the government. Evangelical, they call themselves like non-denominational if you pin them down. It's a form of Pentecostalism, but they're evangelicals. He wants his people in Congress and nobody else controlling government. He tries to work it and massage it and justify it away and say, no, we're really not Christian nationalists. We're really not that bad. But just keep listening to what he says here.
Christian faith. We cannot force our faith on anyone. That is idiotic. Many have done it in the past. There are many radical Muslims trying to force their faith on people right now. There are many radical atheists in nations like China and North Korea trying to force their faith on people.
China is forcing religious belief on people? Okay, go on.
A true Christian says faith is free. Belief in Jesus can never be coerced. It is a gift from God. So if maniacal Christians took control of this country, they would make it safe for everybody else to be a part of this country. So do not fear theocracy, folks. That is a chimera. That is nonsense, a mirage.
Did you catch that? Did you catch what this dude just said? If maniacal Christians took control of this country, they would make it safe for everybody.
Gift from God. So if maniacal Christians took control of this country, they would make it safe for everybody else to be a part of this country.
So it's interesting he says that. The bottom line here is that he wants maniacal Christians to be a part of the government. In fact, he wants it to be the government. Now, his reasoning here that he's presenting, I don't think for a second that he believes any of this. He's a propagandist. He knows what he's doing, in my opinion. Anyway, his reasoning here is Christians will open up freedoms for everybody. They will allow people to be free to do whatever they want. Except that's not what happens. That's not what Christian nationalists like Eric Metaxas are trying to do. That's not the thing that they advocate for. I'll just give you one example. Think about a religion whose tenet is they have to sacrifice a child on an altar once a day to the sun god, right? That would obviously be illegal in the United States. Rightfully so. You can't sacrifice children. That's wrong. Why? Because your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing it anywhere else you want, except for right here. Because when you start swinging your fist here and the government stops you, it's not a violation of your rights to swing your fist. It's a protection of my right to not be punched. That's the general idea. Well, Eric Metaxas says he wants, quote-unquote, maniacal Christians in government. His words, right? And what do those maniacal Christians want to do? They just want to practice their faith. Now, their faith happens to violate other people's rights. just want to practice our faith, just want to sacrifice somebody at an altar to a sun god every day. To get more literal, to get more down to earth and specific with Eric Metaxas, he is anti-abortion under any circumstances. Say the person who needs it is 10 years old and was attacked, assaulted, and we find out, 10 weeks in, for example, that it doesn't even have a head. Like, it's just malformed. And if the 10-year-old goes through with it, it will kill her. There is no benefit to not getting an abortion in that situation, right? Now, you may think, well, what are the chances of that happening? They're a lot higher than you'd think in a country of 330 million people. A 1 in a million event happens 330 times every day in the United States, give or take, obviously, statistically. That may or may not be right, but you get the idea. The point is, it's not as uncommon as you think it is. It happens. So what does Eric Metaxas want to do? He wants to force his belief that abortion is wrong in all cases on everybody else. Yes, atheists will be safe in his Christian nationalist country as long as they adhere to all of their social beliefs and cultural norms and values and all that. Well, atheists are safe in Saudi Arabia if they adhere to all of the Muslim values of preventing women or making women wear hijabs and going to mosques and things like that every day, doing their prayers and all that. You can live in Saudi Arabia perfectly safe. It doesn't matter what you believe as long as you don't do anything that they don't want you to do, like get an abortion in his case. Eric Metaxas is desperate. In fact, not just Eric Metaxas, but a lot of people, a lot of Christian nationalists are desperate to convince people that they just have your best interests at heart. They just want to help you. They just want evangelicals at the head of government and nobody else. Only evangelicals. And it'll make it better for everyone. Oh, but you're going to have to follow all of our rules. I read Eric Metaxas' book recently, as I said, A Letter to a Christian Church, or I think it's called Letter to the Christian Church, something like that. I'm going to be writing a book about it for sure. I've already written a book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, about my experience in the religion. owenmorgan.com/book if you want to find my storefront for all of my books. But my next one is probably going to be about Letter to a Christian Church. It'll be a response to it. The entire book that Eric Metaxas wrote was framed from the perspective of a pastor in Nazi Germany who saw what was happening around him and objected to it. Now, he names this pastor. Apparently, there's a guy named Bonhoeffer. I don't even know if this person was real. Eric Metaxas claims he was. I don't know if he was a good person. I don't know if he agreed with any of the... I don't know. But he compares himself to Bonhoeffer. He says, we are in Nazi Germany right now, and we need to speak up and stop it now before it progresses further, because they're about to take the next step. That was the premise of the entire book, Letter to a Christian Church. We are in Nazi Germany. We need to stop it. Who are the Nazis, I hear you asking? Anybody who perpetuates cancel culture. That's who the Nazis are. Anybody who doesn't want to go to a Dave Chappelle show because they worry he's going to say some anti-trans. That person's a Nazi in Eric Metaxas' mind. I'm not joking. You think I'm joking? No, I took notes for that book. Extensive notes. Let me see. I'm just going to pull it up real quick here. I mean, just let me read a couple of lines from my notes here. They may not make a whole lot of sense, but just listen to what I wrote. Healthy patriotism wasn't enough, so churches had to virtue signal by hanging Nazi flags. This is much like churches flying BLM flags. That's what he said in his book, Letter to the American Church. I need to know what it was called now. Yeah, Letter to the American Church is what it was called. Churches don't realize the forces behind BLM and rainbow flags are smiling because they deceived them. And the forces behind BLM flags and rainbow flags? Satan. Demons. The BLM and the LGBT community are like Nazis. That is what he said in his book, Chapter 5. It's called 12,000 Pastors. Again, I'm going to write all about it when I get an opportunity. I mean, he wrote some real psychotic stuff in this book, seriously. You don't know this guy, potentially, But your family member probably does. Your grandpa probably does. Like Rush Limbaugh, all over again. Communists are on the list of Nazis. Socialists are Nazis in his mind. He said, here's what I wrote in my notes. Socialistic and communistic ideas are being pushed everywhere, which will hurt the poor more than anyone. Those who spread socialistic and communistic ideas boldly claim that those who oppose the ideas hate the poor. That was the premise of the whole book. The left is made up of Nazis, literal, full-blown Nazis. And if you don't do something now, we're going to start... When I say we, I mean the left. Anybody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport, apparently. We're going to start revving up the gas chambers. You think I'm joking? There's no smile on this face. That was the premise of the entire book. As a matter of fact, on his show, he says equally as insane stuff. This guy is named John Zimmerack, and he has him on as a guest regularly. I think this clip was from mid-September 2022.
When the Nazis attacked Jewish stores and got away with it, that told people persecution, real genocidal persecution is down the road. Right now in America, our government and the leftist institutions that support it, from the Ivy League to large numbers of churches, to the mainstream of the Republican Party, which supports it by being afraid to fight it, it's reminding me of the buildup in the 1990s in Rwanda.
What is reminding you of the Rwandan genocide? What is reminding you of Nazi Germany? Seriously, one thing, please. All I got out of the, 300-page book that I read, Letter to the American Church, was BLM and the LGBT community are bad. Communists and socialists are bad. People like to twist the truth, and that's not fun. That's bad. Oh, and I got chapter 11, Be Ye Not Political, Romans 13:1. He gave a kind of a sleazy justification for why he should actually contradict the Bible and be involved in politics. Oh my God, dude. It's just, what are people doing that you think justifies you comparing yourself to the persecuted minority in a genocide? I don't know that these people even believe it themselves, but they, when I say they, I mean Eric Metaxas and John Zimmerack, these two people specifically, are trying to frame it up in such a way that their entire audience will start seeing it that way. They're the persecuted minority too. This is just sad. Real Pumpkin J, I think, earlier said they wrote a paper on Bonhoeffer in 9th grade. Really interesting. At me with some information, just at Owen's Fireside Chat, and tell me Bonhoeffer was real. He was not a Christian nationalist. Right, as far as I could tell, in this book that Eric Metaxas wrote, Letter to the American Church, he basically said that Bonhoeffer was one of the only Christians that spoke out against what was happening and tried to organize this whole thing to prevent, the Nazi regime from taking over, so on and so forth. Again, I don't know anything about Bonhoeffer, but it doesn't really matter. The ultimate point here is that these people believe that themselves to be Bonhoeffer. They believe themselves to be Jews in Germany in 1940. So now he's talking about being a Tutsi from the Tutsi tribe in the Rwandan genocide. There were the Tutsis and the Hutus, two tribes, basically exactly the same in every way. They were just separated pretty much by tall and short, or lighter skin and darker skin by the British that colonized the area. It was so stupid how they were separated. But that separation created this visceral hate for the other side until the Hutus put out the call to cut the tall trees, which meant take out the taller people, the Tutsis. That's when the genocide began in full. And he's comparing himself to a Tutsi tribe member who's about to be subject to a genocide.
In the 1990s in Rwanda, the build up towards genocide. The Hutus were the majority, but they weren't as wealthy or successful as the minority Tutsis. So they resented them. They wanted
Tutsi. Isn't Tootsie a movie or something?
their stuff. They wanted their power. They wanted their money. And they started...
Oh my God, dude. Look, this is a long discussion, and there's no way to simplify this fairly, but the way that he's simplifying it is, like, absurd on every level. This is not a fair simplification of the situation at all, but whatever. You know what? Whatever. That's not the point. The world looked on for 100 days, by the way. Didn't say a goddamn word. Just watched a genocide take place right in front of their eyes. It was horrific.
They wanted their money, and they started demonizing the Tutsis, calling them cockroaches on radio shows.
Yep, that's true.
News hosts would refer to Tutsi cockroaches.
Yes.
The way I see people talking about white people, about Christians, about so-called Christian nationalists.
Sure. White people are so persecuted. They are just treated so poorly in America. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, totally.
They talk about us the same way.
Okay, John,
Who is they, by the way, in this scenario? Is it like any minority group? Is it BLM? I don't know. This is a psychotic thing to say, but I repeat, it is basically the premise of one of Eric Metaxas' most successful books, Letter to the American Church. Guys, this needs to be debunked. This needs to be called out for real. Owen's Fireside Chat, he wound up helping people to the point of giving the shirt off his back, and he was hanged at Buchenwald in the end. Wow, I did not know. That's very honorable then. And honestly embarrassing for Eric Metaxas to compare himself to Bonhoeffer in his book, Letter to the American Church. Really. By the way, this is probably the next book I'm going to write. It's going to be a response to Eric Metaxas' book. And right from the outset, I intend to take on the label. I am the person that you're talking about. Let's just say I'm the guy. You're talking about, Nazi persecutors or whatever. Me. I'm the guy that you're afraid of or whatever. I'll take those qualities on and let's talk about it and really think about these ideas. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not even a communist. I'm not a socialist. I believe that Black lives do matter. Absolutely. I believe that gay people have the right to live their lives and to get married and do whatever they want, just like everybody else. Why is it so hard to understand? Do you know what the Nazis were doing? They were persecuting people, actually. That's what was happening. And do you know what Eric Metaxas is doing? By putting lines like, hang on, where was it? Let me find it. I think it was in chapter 10 notes? No, it's chapter 5, 12,000 pastors. Churches flying Nazi flags in Germany was much like churches flying BLM flags today. Churches don't realize the forces behind BLM and rainbow flags are smiling because they deceive them. The BLM and LGBT community are like Nazis. Well, I support BLM and I support the LGBT community, so I'm the guy. That's how I intend to engage with these ideas when I write this. This is just insane. Get help, Eric. This is nuts.
I want to interrupt. I wrote an article, folks. I think it was back in April or May. It was published at the Stream, and it was written by Russell Moore, who's the head of Christianity Today.
Don't know any of these things, but okay. I do know what Christianity Today is. Isn't it like an evangelical blog? I need to start differentiating between Christian and evangelical because they're very much different in their own ways.
By Russell Moore, who's the head of Christianity Today now. Okay, think of this. The head of Christianity Today. And it was an article in very highfalutin language doing exactly what John just said, demonizing people who are culturally or politically conservative, who are white, demonizing them in the pages of Christianity Today.
He said in highfalutin language. Do you mean he didn't call you cockroaches? He didn't say it's time to cut the tall trees. He didn't say they're worthless and something needs to be done about them permanently or any of that stuff. Are you saying that he was just criticizing you? Is criticism now like a Nazi thing? Like you can't criticize somebody without being a Nazi? Is that like what I'm coming to understand? Like, is that what he's saying here? Okay. Wow. Criticism has its roots in Nazism. I didn't know. Today I learned, right?
Of Christianity today. I wrote a response to it, which John published at stream.org. But I want to tell you, we're not making this up. If
you are making this up. You are making up fictitious persecution. I am criticizing you. That is not the same as trying to kill you, put you in a work camp or something. I don't even know what he thinks I'm trying to do to the guy. Like, what?
If you ignore this now, you become part of the problem. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. This is really wicked. I want to be honest. I want to be clear. This is really wicked. John is not exaggerating about.
Yes, he is. Exaggeration? No, I'm sorry. You know what? Exaggeration isn't even the right word here. This is like this is in another universe. This is not representative of reality at all. So no, not an exaggeration, I suppose. It's just fake entirely. Anyway, God, dude, just get help, man. This is nuts. And you think it stops there. Oh, baby. No, it does not. I don't know if you guys remember this a while back. Donald Trump posted to his Truth Central thing or whatever, his social media platform, whatever it is. He posted something that basically said, we need to suspend the Constitution to reinstate me as president. And a lot of people don't believe this. Like a lot of Trump supporters, when asked, during interviews and stuff, they don't know that. They don't know he even said it because it doesn't pierce through the echo chamber. Let me look it up just to really lay it out so everybody knows. Here's the tweet right here or whatever it is. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, there was no such revelation. But okay, let's just take it for granted for a second. With the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception in working closely with big tech companies, the DNC, and the Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? No, there's an answer to this. If there were widespread fraud, then there would be a process that we would go through to figure out who actually won, more than likely. But there was no massive and widespread fraud. What he's doing is trying to get people to take those steps to install him as president, which is outside of the Constitution. That's not outlined in the Constitution, what he's describing. What he wants to happen as a result of this fictitious situation is not how the Constitution describes what you do next. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Well, there you go. Donald Trump said he wants to suspend the Constitution to install himself as the president. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. Well, the election wasn't fraudulent, but either way, even if it was, that doesn't justify suspending the Constitution. This is from Donald Trump's Truth Central account. Really. Okay, now Eric Metaxas is about to talk about that.
Donald Trump made some statement like, forget the Constitution or whatever. And of course, people take.
No, he said, it's time to throw out all rules and make me the president in place of Joe Biden because I believe that there was fraud or whatever. Suspend the Constitution. That's what he said.
I'm literally like, oh my God, what he's saying? What's he saying? But he was making a point, and in typical.
Yeah, and the point is put him in as president and ignore the Constitution. How does this get clearer?
What he's saying, what's he saying? But he was making a point, and in typical fashion, he made his point in a way that might bother some people because they don't know how to read him or something.
Oh, it's your fault. Okay, it's your fault. You messed up because you don't know how to read Donald Trump's tweets or whatever. Okay, go on.
But
Let's talk about what he was talking about and why we agree that he shouldn't have said it that way, but why we're not as troubled as some people who think that he thinks we should throw away the Constitution, because obviously he doesn't. But
he does. He said it. He does. As a matter of fact, when asked if he wanted to be a dictator, if he was going to be a dictator, he said, yes, I am going to be a dictator. I don't care what reason you cite or what comes next or what came before. I don't care. Saying that you intend to be a dictator for any period of time is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. And it's pretty clear to me, honestly. Like, it kind of, he plays his hand. He makes it obvious what the goals are, right?
He said, okay, because he wanted to.
He's describing a conversation with Sean Hannity here.
You're not going to be a dictator, is that, I said, no, Sean, I'm going to be a dictator. I said that.
He said, I'm going to be a dictator for a day while I do all kinds of unconstitutional things and ignore the rules and change the country into what I want it to be. That's what he said, effectively. Does it get clearer than that, honestly? And we have a propagandist out here. Okay, Hitler was a dictator, right? Hitler came in and changed everything in his image to be what he wanted it to be. And not only do we have Trump saying, I want to be a dictator, I will be a dictator for a day. Not only do we have that, not only do we have Eric Metaxas and others pretending that the left are the Nazis. Like, what? But we even have Kenneth Copeland Ministries out here advocating for, like, a Hitler-type situation. This is recent. This is from mid-February 2024, this one is.
They're not based upon fascism that Hitler was. I mean,
Christian nationalists aren't based on that kind of fascism.
That's not, he wanted pride in Germany again. They had been decimated.
Yeah, see, that's something they had in common, right? Christian nationalists want pride in the United States the same way Hitler wanted pride in Germany. Sure, they had similarities. They had fascism in common.
By the previous war. I mean, their inflation rate was astronomical.
By the way, Germany, World War II Germany, boy, they had it hard, didn't they? Wow. They had a really rough time, World War II Germany did.
Was astronomical, the Weimar Republic. Now, that's what a bad leader can do, but imagine what a good leader could do with nationalism.
And that good leader, I guess, is Donald Trump, self-proclaimed dictator for a day or whatever. By the way, you don't become dictator for a day. You don't take the power and then walk away from it 24 hours later, okay?
With nationalism or even Christian nationalism. I mean, if Hitler can do that, bad guy, imagine what a good guy can do.
Id est, he wants a dictator like Hitler, except Christian. That's where we're at. Okay, now go ahead, Eric Metaxas. Explain to me how I was at fault. I'm wrong about this whole situation. I'm the one that is misunderstanding Donald Trump. Okay, go on.
Because they don't know how to read him or something. But
right, I can't read Trump, okay?
Let's talk about what he was talking about and why we agree that he shouldn't have said it that way, but why we're not as troubled as some people who think that he thinks we should throw away the Constitution, because obviously he doesn't. But he
does. He specifically, explicitly said he does. He wants to throw out the Constitution and become a dictator.
But he was being a little hyperbolic. But let's talk about
Donald Trump hyperbolic. Imagine
what?
That.
Get
right?
out of here.
So to set this up, though.
This is Jenna Ellis. I've covered her a couple times. She was Trump's attorney, I think, at one point, and she's in a whole bunch of trouble now for what she did for Donald Trump. No joke. And Trump just threw her under the bus so hard. Oh, my God. It's glorious to see, honestly.
This up though, I obviously know and respect Donald Trump personally. I've worked for him. Everyone knows that. And so I can say without a shadow of a doubt that Donald Trump loves and respects the Constitution more than almost anyone that I know.
Totally. I bet he sits there at night, he's got his little cap on, a cone-shaped cap with the little puffball on the top. He's got like striped pajamas and all that. He sits there next to Melania, right? and he reads the Constitution instead of a book every night, right? He sits there, just reads through it, Articles 1 to 13, and then when he's done with that, he hits the amendments. How many amendments do we have? 26, I think? Such a joke, dude. These people are such a joke. I mean, you know, the purpose of this whole video is to show you how ridiculous Eric Metaxas is and how far he's willing to go to defend his God Emperor. I don't use that term flippantly. They call him that. When I say they, I mean some of the more extreme Trump Forum members. G. Otis, God Emperor of the United States. Eric Metaxas is doing everything he can to further Trump's goals and political career, whatever it takes. And to convince you that you live in a Nazi regime and the Nazis are people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport, apparently.
This is spiritual warfare, and we are now in the Normandy landing of spiritual warfare. The Democratic Party is possessed by preternatural evil. It is not a human institution anymore. It is an instrument of wicked spirits.
I mean, this is taking an additional step, as if I didn't even know that was possible. I thought calling somebody a Nazi was about it, the peak. No, it goes further than that, I guess. We aren't dealing with something that's human anymore. It's preternatural evil.
This is demonic. Our enemies are demonic. There's no turning the other cheek. There's no being winsome.
I mean, that's literally exactly what Jesus said, turn the other cheek. I don't care if that's something that you can do or not. I don't care if turning the other cheek gets you killed. That was a command of Jesus. If you die because you turned the other cheek, you can die knowing that you did what God wanted you to do, right? Apparently not.
There's no turning the other cheek. There's no being winsome. There's no compromise possible.
And I want to be clear, just theologically, because in the past, if you don't clarify these things, people misinterpret them.
People will misinterpret them, okay?
Folks, we're not saying that these people are demons. We're saying that they're being used by demons, and we need to understand that at the heart of all this is a spiritual battle. There's no other way to make sense of it. If you're solving for X, if you know how to do algebra, you solve for X, you don't even need to believe in God. This will make you believe in God. This will make you understand. When you look at this, you say, there is no other possible explanation. If I connect all the dots, it doesn't make any sense. Greed, politics, nothing could account for what we're seeing except something genuinely spiritually dark and wicked.
Dude, I am so blown away by this dude's complete lack of caring anymore. He's given up. He's ready to just call everybody a Nazi. Anybody to the left of me is a Nazi, and yes, I am far right. That's the way he's framing it up. It's insane. Oh my God. And he will do anything he can to defend Donald Trump too. I mean, that's pretty clear, right? Even when Trump says we need to suspend the Constitution, even when Trump says he wants to be a dictator, it doesn't matter. This guy will defend him to the death. It's an embarrassment. But remember, guys, nothing to fear from a Christian nationalist agenda. Nothing to fear from maniacal Christians taking control of the country, right?
So if maniacal Christians took control of this country, they would make it safe for everybody else to be a part of this country.
Totally. I believe you without question, 100%. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think this guy needs help desperately. Basically, anyone that doesn't agree with him are the bad guys, while failing to realize he and his yes people are the people he hates. Absolutely. It just, it blows me away that this guy, that Eric Metaxas, is it obliviousness? Does he really not know? He can't possibly not know, right? That he's just completely full of it? He must recognize that he's the Nazi in this scenario. I just can't wait to write the book. I just feel like I want to write it, but I feel like I need to get the first one out before writing the second one. I don't know. Maybe I should start on it. I'll write an outline or something.